Hey, it's Drybear. Today marks 1 month since the early access for the launch of Diablo 4 began, and since then, everyone has been driving towards endgame, unlocking their characters, playing different classes, and perfecting their builds and trying their hand at the hardest content in the game. And since the release, there has been tons of content covering all the best tips and tricks and strategies for Diablo 4, but I thought I'd do a more advanced tips for you for Diablo 4 after having played for a month. What are the things that I've learned that I see people still don't understand or aren't aware of as I mention it and someone in chat's like, wait, really? That's how it works? So I collected a list here of 11 things that you can see that you probably would only want if you have an advanced experience in the game, not just for just getting started, but I've been playing for a while, help me get some new tips. So that's what I'm gonna be going through today. And a reminder is that today we have the dev stream for season 1, going over all the season 1 changes. We'll be watching it live on my channel, twitch.tv/Drybear. I'll be taking notes on screen so you can see if you have to pop in and out because you're working or busy, you'll at least have the Spark notes, the Cliff notes showing on screen so you'll know exactly what's going on in the announcement for the dev stream as well. That's going to be 11 a.m. Pacific or 2 p.m. Eastern today. Now, the first one I want to talk about is one that actually a lot of people in my chat didn't know about, is the option of using the protector aspect from your codex. It seems like that the codex option for this base, like flat stat legendary aspect, is based on your level and your world tier, which means that the codex power is actually better than most of the ones that are going to drop for you, unless the drop is very high eye level and scaled up all the way. So in this case, protector is a defensive legendary that gives you a barrier or a range of HP for 10 seconds when you damage an elite, with a 30-second cooldown. You can see that I have in my stash here a protector that rolled lower than the value because this was something that's low. You can get a range on Ancestral 3230 to 6460 if you have an upgraded item before you imprint, or you have something from the super high eye level like an 820 plus armor, you can get some good values on this. However, currently right now in the Codex of Power, if you were to do the defensive stat of protector, it actually is significantly higher than any of the items that you drop. So if you were to use Aspect of the Protector from the Codex, it would give 8954 for me right now on an item, whereas the item I just showed you was like 3000 HP, and it's a range based on how it drops and the value that you get. So right now in the game, if you don't really have to collect Protector aspects, you can just pull it from the Codex and it will give insane value at base. And there's a chance you get a higher value than this on an item if it's a really rare high item level, perfectly rolled aspect, which can be super nice. But otherwise, I would just use the Codex of Power. It's free, it's easy, and it gives you a very, very nice value. The next tip is that because Nightmare Dungeons aren't timed, you can very easily just go back to town and use the healer. So in every major town, there is a healer that you can walk up to. It'll fully heal you, give you full resources as well, and also replenish all of your potion charges. There's nothing stopping you in a Nightmare Dungeon from just portaling back to town, talking to the healer, getting healed up, refreshing your potions, and coming back into the Nightmare Dungeon. So if you're pushing, unlike in other timed rifts in Diablo 3 or things like that, there's no penalty for you to just go back to town and heal. So take advantage of this. If you're pushing difficult content, if you're working towards Nightmare 100 or anything higher than what you are right now, just go ahead and use this as an option to heal up. If you use all your potion charges and you're really struggling, pop back to town, talk to the healer, refresh, come back in. The next is something we discovered on stream a couple days ago, and it's something that we would use just for pushing. And it's actually the reason why people are getting so much XP from Nightmare Dungeons right now. So if you didn't know, Sigil Powder as well as all materials cannot be traded or given to other players. There's no way for you to trade or exchange Sigil Powder, which is the resource that you use to craft sigils to make the Nightmare Dungeons that you do. And of course, sigils themselves are also account bound, which means you can't give these away for any reason. But with group play, they've made it very generous in that only the party leader has to activate the Nightmare Sigil, or someone in the party activates it and everyone accepts it as their Nightmare Sigil, and then they'll be able to teleport to it. However, they have a safety feature in there right now, which means that if the person who owns the sigil leaves or passes leader and then leaves, the people in the party can choose to stay and continue. So someone has to go, they don't want the end of the sigil, they got something that they need to do, they can head out. What happens is if you pass lead to another person in the party, after you have, so say I want to give this sigil to someone else. I can activate this with someone in my party. They accept it as a sigil for them. We go inside and I have to go, or I want to give them the sigil. I can pass lead to them and I can leave. When I leave, a pop-up will come up in the top left corner that says, hey, do you want to return to your world, or do you want to stay in the instance of the world that you're in right now? The other person would just say yes, and they'll stay in that nightmare dungeon. They can complete it. They can get the rewards. Even though it's not their sigil, they didn't make it, they can still get it. Now, there's a second part of this that probably will get changed, I'm guessing, in the coming couple weeks or so. But what happens is when you leave that party as the person who owned the sigil, you'll go back to your world, but you'll still have the sigil activated as a nightmare dungeon because the sigil was consumed. So when you go back to that nightmare dungeon and you enter into it, it has created a new version of that exact sigil for you in your world, separate from the one you created before, which means that you now have a duplicate instance of that sigil, and the one that you just entered, because it's not the one that you were just in, is reset. And so that's how people are farming insane amounts of XP, is they'll get a good tier nightmare dungeon with good affixes that they care about, or good item drop, or gold drop, or something like that. And then they'll run it until it's about to be done, swap leader, leave, everyone joins the person that left, they'll enter a new version of that exact same sigil, run it again, leave before they finish it, and just keep running it infinitely. And that's how people are getting crazy amount of XP on Nightmare Dungeons. I expect this to change, as this feels a little bit too exploity, getting one sigil to spawn infinite Nightmare Dungeons, but it is a way for you to give sigils to your teammates if you want, to help them farm, or they need something, or they're low on sigil powder, they need to be able to farm up some more. You can give them a sigil this way by passing over the sigil to them. The next tip is that you can swap items between characters on the same server. So characters that are both on the Eternal server, characters that are both on the Seasonal server, will have a shared stash that they can access to trade items with. And the big thing that people have discovered, at least in the last week or two, has been that you can actually re-roll items, the stats. You can enchant them at the Occultist and drop new stats on them based on the class that's re-rolling it. To put this in the category of might change at some point, but a great infographic was created by Mobilytics on the website. You can see exactly what stats can roll for the specific item, and also which stats can roll for specific characters as well. So what you can do is, if you're looking for, say, lucky hit chance while you have a barrier on something like a Sorceress, you can move the helm item to a Sorc character and then go to the Occultist and re-roll it until you get that stat. Or if there's a specific stat that you want from the general pool of stats, you can select a character that has less available stats on that item than you do. So you can see that, say for the chest item, you see how many stats are available for Druid. Druid has a large selection of stats to pick from on the chest piece, whereas Barbarian and Sorcerer have less. So if what you're looking for is one of these general stats, say it's ultimate skill damage, total armor, damage reduction, all damage reduction is very good for chest. Maybe you want to consider, if you're a Druid or a Necromancer or a Rogue, maybe give that item to a Sorcerer, re-roll it until you get the damage reduction that you want, and then pass it back to that class, because some classes have a larger pool of stats to choose from when they're re-enchanting an item, which means that the chance that you get the general stat that you want is lower, since there's so many more to pick from. The next tip is around inventory management, and we all know that there's just a big issue with managing your inventory right now. I've had to constantly throw out gear. I respec all the frickin' time. And so you're able to kind of get through these by just suffering as best you can. There's just affixes everywhere. There's all kinds of aspects loading up your inventory every which way. So there's a couple ways you can help alleviate this until we get a better solution for inventory management. The first one that people have been doing has been, they will just drop gems into two-handers with double slots. You can even do this while you're looting and questing and doing dungeons. So when you get gem drops, you can drop them into the gear. When you salvage that gear, the gems will come back out and the gear itself will be salvaged. So you can very easily just use that as a way to store it, or just kind of have it in the gear as a way to save inventory space. But the second thing that I'll tell you, which is far more important, is take advantage of having mules. What I'll do, you can see I have Necro Mule and Necro Mule 2, and then I've been kind of using these guys as mules. It's much easier to just make another character and use that stash space. If you can have up to 10 slots initially, so you can go over to one of my Necro Mules that has all my excess. When I finish, like I'm done with bone builds, I'll put all the bone aspects and bone gear onto that character, so it's out of my stash, and I have less to worry about. I've filled up almost 4 characters worth of loot right now, but it is a really easy way to stack things up and kind of keep those there. So I know that you can even name your characters, like this is my Barbarian Arsenal character, and that's where I put all my stuff related to that. But I encourage you to do it right now if you're not someone that's a severe ultaholic and you've used all your character slots. Just make a character name. You can name it exactly what you're storing on it. Almost like it's like a little shopping cart, little separate extra character. Put items that you need on that character. And what's great is if you've already finished the campaign, when you make the character, you can just say skip campaign, put me right into the main town. You can access the stash at level 1, and then you can start pulling things out that you don't need, items that are way out of your character's league, but you can hold on to because you still need them, or there's an aspect that you need on them, or you can have a character just for gems or things like that. But I have almost 4 full characters filled up this way, just using equipment and aspects and consumables that I am not able to hold on to my main, or I just need the extra stash space in order to be able to use it because there just isn't enough room for everything. So the tip is create and take advantage of mules. You can name them and delete them as you need, but if you're running on a stash space, you have extra character slots for this purpose. The next tip is one that I didn't know for the first few weeks of Diablo 4, and actually seems like a lot of people don't know either, is that you can actually just right-click on the glyph you want to upgrade when you finish a Nightmare dungeon. The trick with this and why it's a little bit weird, because normally what people do is they'll select the glyph, go down to the very bottom and click Update Upgrade Glyph, and it applies the XP to level it up. That's your main option, but you can also right-click on it. What's weird about this, though, is that it'll actually only, no matter which one you right-click, it'll always upgrade the one that's highlighted in red that's up here. So you can click on it and then right-click on it, but I've had it happen where like I click on one of these down here, right-click on it, and it'll apply to the one that's selected. But you can fast do it that way. So you can left-click, right-click, and it'll apply it instantly, and then you can go about your business. If you're speed farming, speed grinding, getting all your glyphs leveled up, you don't even have to hit this button. You can just select the glyph and then right-click it. It'll automatically apply the experience. So that's the tip. The next tip is along the same lines of maximizing your farming speed. And one of the best tips I can tell you is that the Tree of Whispers waypoint is one of the fastest ways to speed this up. So when you finish a Nightmare Dungeon or a world boss, or you just did a Helltide and you got a bunch of stuff to get rid of, one of the fastest ways to do this is to, instead of going to a main town or pressing T to go to the nearest main city, just head over to the Tree of Whispers. The reason for this is that when you come out of the portal, there is a vendor right in front of you. So if you're trying to sell yellows that you don't need, you can just get rid of these, get the gold that you have on that, and then you can come down here, and there is actually a blacksmith vendor as well, this little ghost lady. What you usually need to do in between Nightmare Dungeons is, 1, salvage all of your legendary items that you don't need so that you can have those there. You need to stash away any of the legendaries you would want to extract for the aspect. You need to repair if you damage yourself at all. And then you need to go to a vendor and you need to sell all blues and yellows that don't have any potential to be upgraded so you can get gold, and then you can jump right back into the dungeon. So I think that this waypoint is actually one of the best. It's not even a city, but you can come out of the portal, go here, sell all the items you don't need, go to the blacksmith, repair and salvage whatever you don't have, and then go to the stash, dump all the legendaries that you're going to extract later when you have more gold and more free time. Then you can go ahead, activate a new sigil, boom, you're right back in the dungeon, you're farming right again. I'm going to be using this as well for season while leveling, so I can just keep that body rolling. And the main reason for this is that some of the cities, everything's just very spread apart. All of the vendors are all over the frickin' place, and you have to run around and do a lot of crazy things. So this is another hot tip. If you're trying to speed things up, this is one of the most densely packed, and it has all the essentials that you need to get everything done. You can sell, you can check if there's any amulets or rings that you want to buy, salvage legendaries, repair, dump, back in the Nightmare Dungeon, boom, 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 you're ready to go. The next one is that when you salvage upgraded gear, you actually get a refund on the valuable materials you used to upgrade it. And this is something that I run into since I make builds all the time. I've been respeccing constantly and making new builds, throwing out gear and all of that. I run out of some very important materials constantly, which is silver ore. You need it for upgrading. I go through this constantly. I'm always out of it. You have things like coiling wards from legendaries, abstruse sigils, baleful fragments, even veiled crystals I run out of all the time. And a lot of these are just used for upgrading gear, but I'm always out of them because I'm changing my gear constantly and upgrading. You see, I have all of these here that are just leftovers from previous builds. But what you may not have known already is that if you go to a blacksmith and you were to salvage an item that you have upgraded all the way, it will not only give you the base salvage materials, but it will also give you all of the upgrade materials that you used to upgrade that item. So if you go to your stash and you have tons and tons of these laying around from old builds that you don't really want to use anymore, consider just salvaging them if you're running low on things like silver ore or some of these coiling wards or things like that. You'll get a big chunk of them back because you spent them to upgrade, and then you're salvaging the upgraded item. The next tip is two very useful things from the UI that I have not seen a lot of players taking advantage of. The first one is going to be a very important control option for you when it comes to playing the game, and that is a force move option for your character. You can see by default, this is not bound to anything. And this is something that a lot of ARPG veterans know about, but if you're new to an ARPG or you haven't really played an infinite amount of time of it to the point where you just got sick of this, you may not have known that this option is available. So if you have an attack bound on your left click on mouse on PC or whatever the bind is for on console, you'll notice that sometimes when you're in a dense pack and you're trying to move around, you may accidentally target something and start attacking rather than actually moving. So what the force move control option does for you is that it says this button will never attack. It doesn't matter what you have your location on. It will always move you to your cursor or to where you're trying to go, regardless of what other things are in the way, which means that you can actually set this to something like W. It's what I've used in all of my past ARPGs. I use W. Some people use spacebar. Some people use control or something like that. But I just like having this here so that you can actually just hold this button down and move around, even if you're in a dense pack of enemies. Sometimes it costs you your life if you stop and cast an attack when you're trying to run away from something. So it's a great option to have for the UI in there. The other option is there is a secondary HUD configuration available for you in the options. If you go to options, to gameplay, and then down to HUD configuration, the default is centered, is what you see on screen here, where everything is centered. But there's another option that you might prefer more, which is going to be left corner. So when you save this and apply it, you'll see that all of my resources and everything has been tucked over into the corner. All of my cooldowns are right there. My abilities are to the right. My mount is in the bottom left. And then my health and my essence, or your primary resource for your class, is all condensed there. So if you prefer to have a little bit more of a free camera space here near your character, you can actually move this UI. This is built in base to the game and is available to you right now. It's not a future patch. It's already in the game. And just some people don't know about it. So I wanted to make sure those two options in the menu were made aware to you. The next tip is around your health bar. I am shocked at how many people don't know that this information is here on your screen when you're playing the game. So if you didn't know, based on your current HP amount, you will either be healthy, injured, or you'll either be healthy, non-healthy, or injured, depending on what value of HP you have. If you have HP that's 80% or higher, you will be considered healthy. If you are in between, it's normal. And then if you are below 35%, you will be considered injured. But the UI tells you this. So if you actually have skills or passives or key components to your build that rely on you being healthy or you being injured, the UI tells you whether you are or not. So right now you can see that I have this sphere for my HP. This red border here, this outline, this red outline that I have on my HP, that is the indicator for healthy. So if I go out and take damage, you see I'm taking damage here. There's enemies attacking me. I'm running around. Oh no, I'm at 80. There it goes. I just went under 80%. So you can see now that red outline is now gone. So that tells you that you are healthy or not with just that border. If I keep taking damage here, you can see that when I cross 35%, look at that. It starts flashing. There's like this faded color, this dripping blood ooze that goes on top of it, and it starts blinking, and then I even get this little base stroke drop shadow around it. This lets you know that you are injured. So rather than having to do the math to know whether you're healthy or injured or normal, you can just look at the health bar and it actually has visual representation for each of those states. And the last tip I'll leave you with is one that's very easy. It's something that a lot of people use to farm, but not everyone may be aware of it. And that is that the loot that you get from Helltide chests, even open world chests, is based on the world tier that you're on. So if you're going through Helltide and you're looking for all of the mystery chests, you've been doing Helltide diligently, and you should be. It's one of the most important activities you can do it endgame. And the best thing to do in Helltide is to go around and collect all of the mystery chests that you can. You can get anywhere from 2 to 6 mystery chests every single Helltide, depending on how efficient you are at farming and when the chests reset during the event. However, what some people do, which is a little more efficient, is that you can log out, hit the leave game button, set your world tier to 3, which is still endgame. It'll still have access to Helltide. Go clear Helltide for tons of Cinder. You'll clear it much faster and much easier. You'll get all of that drop done. And then when you go over to the mystery chest, they're all over the place. There's one that spawns here, for example. You can just set your world tier, go to the mystery chest, leave game, set world tier to 4, log back in, open the chest. It'll be your max loot because you're on the highest world tier possible. Then set it back to 3, go farm more cinders, go to the next mystery chest. There's another one that spawns over here. You can come down here, set it back to 3, or set it back to 4, open the chest, back to 3, and go farm again. This works perfectly. There's no negative impact. As long as you're on world tier 4, when you open the mystery chest, you'll get full loot. You'll get slightly less on the mobs you're killing, but you will be able to kill them faster for more cinders if that's what you care about. And those are the tips I have for you today. Hopefully there were some in here that you didn't know about or up your game a little bit. Some of these are just like little tidbits that I've learned when playing the game yeah, experiencing and all that. So if you liked the video, leave a like down below. If you found value in it, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people. And remember that today we are going to be having the dev stream for the update on Season 1. We'll be watching it live on my channel, twitch.tv/Drybear, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern is the start time. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.